Dear friends, on the occasion of the UNESCO International Day for Monuments and Sites, I would like to cordially invite you to the unique online event organized by the Polish Institute Vienna and the Royal Castle in Warsaw and Kunsthistorisches Museum Wien. Together with the curators, we will introduce you to the painting heritage of Bernardo Bellotto called Canaletto, an outstanding Italian painter and vedutist who was the representative of the Venetian vedute painting. Bernardo Bellotto became famous as the creator of the paintings of the city views. His art and his work is characterized by precision and details. His famous paintings are the paintings or the views of Warsaw, Venice, Vienna or Dresden. He was active at the courts of Austrian Empress Maria Theresia, Polish King and Saxon Elector August III, or Polish King Stanisław August Poniatowski. Nowadays, his paintings are in the collection of the famous and prestigious museums or institutions, for example, Royal Castle in Warsaw or Kunsthistorisches Museum Wien. I would like to thank all our partners for the cooperation to this project and now invite you to the meeting with the heritage of this exceptional artist.
A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, in the Fine Arts Museum of Vienna. My name is Rotraut Krall, and I would like to invite you to explore together the beautiful paintings by Bernardo Bellotto. You know, we celebrate the International Day of Monuments and Sites, and I think the paintings of Bellotto, his oeuvre, is really a very, very important source to reconstruct the historic sites and places in our beautiful city. First of all, a few words to the artist Bernardo Bellotto. He is the nephew of Canaletto, the famous Canaletto. Everybody knows the paintings of Venice done by Canaletto, and so Bernardo Bellotto was influenced, of course, of his uncle's work and was also his apprenticeship. And very quickly he finished his apprenticeship and became then an independent artist and traveled to Italy, from Lombardy south to Rome and back, and then to Dresden and later to Vienna. Yeah, Vienna was a very important site in this time, a very important place. It was a highly developed cultural life. It was the time of Empress Maria Theresia, and it was just a time when all the beautiful noble palaces were done in the city itself and also outside of the city wall. Bernardo Bellotto was invited to come to Vienna by two noble families, by the family Kaunitz and Liechtenstein. So probably Maria Theresia saw the beautiful compositions and was deeply impressed, and she decided to ask Bellotto to do 13 city views. 13 views of Viennese city, places and squares which are still today in our first district today, but also some sites out of Vienna. And she decided to present this beautiful painting cycle to her beloved daughter, Archduchess Marie Christine, who was married to the Duke of Albert of Sachsen-Teschen. And both were the representatives in Hungary and had their residence in the castle of Bratislava, in former days called Pressburg. And so we suppose that Maria Theresia decided to send all these 13 paintings to Bratislava so that Marie Christine was able to enjoy the city of Vienna and all the beautiful places. Yeah, Bernardo Bellotto presents hidden squares in the first district, but and also the sites of Schönbrunn. And the most famous painting of this series is the view of Vienna seen from the garden of the Belvedere Castle. When you have a look to this beautiful painting, it's presented high up on the wall in our gallery. The place from where Bellotto was working is the upper castle of the Belvedere, the beautiful summer residence which Prince Eugene of Savoy has done. Prince Eugene of Savoy, the famous general, and we can enjoy still today this beautiful view down to the lower castle and then to the city itself. And Bellotto tells us that a group of people is coming along in the park. We see the beautiful textiles and then the beautiful quality of the clothes and the dresses of the ladies and of the men, the noblemen. But what is most interesting for us today is the city itself. In the middle you have the high steeple of St. Stephen. You see the city wall. And on the left side, the white church, and this is the very famous Baroque church of St. Charles Borromée. And on the right side, you see the dome and the monastery of the Salesianerinnen, which exists still today. This was just the core of the city. It's today's first district. And what's important to know, the city wall, the distance between the city wall and St. Charles Borromée, this is a meadow, and this region was now used by lots of noble families to plan and to build their noble palaces there. So did Prince Eugene of Savoy with the Belvedere, and therefore Bellotto was able to present us this beautiful view. Bellotto was not only a master of observing exactly all the details, but he was also very curious and used all the new helpful elements which existed in these days for paintings. Most important was the camera obscura, because the camera obscura is a helpful element to enable the artist to reduce the size of a monument in correct manner, to correctly reduce the size of a monument in a painting. Therefore, Bellotto had also done lots of studies, and when we now compare the painted view and the real view when we are in the garden, we ourselves, then we realize that not all the details are correct because Bellotto wanted to show much more than it would be able in reality. And this is this combination of reality and of illusionism. But here Bellotto was really a master. You must know he spent a little bit more than 1 year here in our city, and during this year and a half he was able to finish about 13 paintings. He had only his son as apprentice, and together with his son he worked in a really very well organized manner, and sometimes he used also the same figures in different paintings. It can happen sometimes. The city view of Vienna shows us late afternoon moment, late afternoon atmosphere, beautiful cloudy situation, marvelous shadows in the park, and also these contrasts in light and shadow. Here we have a little bit the impression that Bernardo didn't work in this impressionistic manner as his uncle. He was more or less impressed also from other Italian characteristics as the Caravaggio light and clear method, the shadowy method. But the description of the buildings is extremely exact. In the middle is the White Palace of the family of Schwarzenberg. In these days it belonged to the family of Schwarzenberg. You can reconstruct all the ornaments on this facade. You can reconstruct the looking of the facade of the castle of Schönbrunn when you look at the painting of Schönbrunn Castle. And so we are really able to get an impression how these old buildings looked like, because some of them changed, of course, their facades until now. Characteristics or Bellotto's quality is concentrated on city views, in combination with landscape. So he painted also beautiful views of Munich. He lived, as you know, in Warschau. He worked in Krakow. And in all these paintings, he was really able to present also a vivid natural atmosphere, which played also an important role in the mid of the 18th century. We here in Vienna are very happy to be able to show all these compositions. Not all the 13 are in the moment presented in our museum, but most of them, because we can just do a walk through the city and go back to the 18th century and enjoy the life of the 18th century. You see this also when you have a look to the view of Vienna with the noble ladies in the red dresses, with the chatting ladies, or with the gardeners working in the beautiful Belvedere garden. And when you come again to Vienna as tourists, and we invite you, of course, cordially to come once again, you will see that the garden in the Belvedere Palace looks exactly as in this painting, because the painting of Bellotto helped to reconstruct the garden decorations. And so I think Bellotto is really a very, very good choice to celebrate this International Day of the Monuments and Sites.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Royal Castle in Warsaw Museum. I'm a curator of paintings, and I have a great pleasure and honor to talk today about a unique series of 23 paintings by Bernardo Bellotto, known as Canaletto. To start with, I'd like to say a few words about our museum. The Royal Castle in Warsaw is one of the top most important Polish museums. It houses in its collection well over 50,000 art objects, paintings, sculptures, pieces of furniture, ceramics, engravings, drawings, and many, many more. In the past, the castle was a royal residence and a seat of Polish Parliament from mid-16th till late 18th century. It was here that the Constitution of May III was proclaimed in 1791. It is considered first such constitution in the history of Europe and second in the world after the Constitution of the United States. Returning to the history of the Royal Castle, neglected in the 19th century during the partitions, the castle started to return to its former glory after 1918, when Poland regained its independence. It became one of the most important public buildings, and the President of Polish Republic lived here. This is due to that reason that the castle was destroyed during the Second World War. It was a symbol of Polish independence, and it simply embodied the Polish state. In September 1939, Hitler himself supervised the bombardment of the castle. The chief curator, Kazimierz Brokl, died trying to save priceless works of art. When the Warsaw Uprising fell, the German Nazi troops loaded up the remains of the former royal residence. Importantly, it was not sure after the Second World War whether the castle would be rebuilt like the rest of the city, which was previously destroyed in 90%. The communist authorities were not eager to rebuild the former royal residence and symbol of Polish independence. It was only thanks to efforts that were undertook by Polish researchers, among them Stanisław Lorentz, and non-governmental organizations that influenced the communist authorities, who in 1971 finally gave their consent for the reconstruction. It is worth remembering that initially the funds for the process of the castle's reconstruction came solely from the members of Polish society and Poles who after the Second World War lived abroad. In the 1980s, the castle was made accessible for the public, for the general public. The art collection of the castle had to be, however, created anew, and today it consists of historical paintings that were exhibited in the castle in the 18th century, those that were acquired in the 19th century and in the 1920s, as well as post-war donations and purchases. Undoubtedly, the most precious in the collection of the Royal Castle in Warsaw, in the collection of paintings, are two original artworks by Rembrandt van Rijn. These are the girl in the picture frame and the scholar by his writing table. However, right behind the Rembrandt are Canaletto's paintings, a unique series of 23 paintings which depict Warsaw in the 1770s during the reign of the last Polish king Stanisław Augustus, or in Polish Stanisław August. The paintings which you may see right behind me, it's part of series by the way, the paintings present some general views of the city, as well as chosen palaces and churches and most important streets. They are admired both by the members of the public and the researchers. There is truly something special about those mesmerizing canvases which reflect the hustle and bustle of the Polish capital at a time. The light and shade effects, the use of color and seemingly photographic-like appearance make these paintings unforgettable. And one should really come here in order to fully appreciate the beauty and general effect of 23 paintings decorating the walls of the Canaletto room, as we call it today. However, having in mind what I said before, one may ask, how did all these paintings survive till these days, regarding all that checkered history of the Royal Castle? I'm inclined to say that it was kind of a miracle, or repeated miracles. So the paintings were looted several times. Firstly, during the time of Napoleonic Wars, at the beginning of the 19th century in 1807 and 1808, 4 of them were taken to Paris, among them beautiful panorama of Warsaw, which you can see right behind me. They were returned to Warsaw on request of Prussian state, and again later all the paintings had been removed to Russia, and it was in 1832, so not very long after the previous event. After the paintings were repatriated to Poland in 1921 from Russia, they were returned to their original sizes, because it happened that their sizes were slightly changed, and there was an attempt to display them in the same order as it was in the 18th century. However, in 1920s, researchers failed to achieve the perfect order. It was during the Second World War probably that the paintings suffered the most. They were looted by German Nazi troops. They were moved to the National Museum Warsaw, and then we are not very sure, some paintings were transferred to Krakow and they were meant to be transported to the territory of Germany, but it's not very clear. Thankfully, they were retrieved after the end of the Second World War, and since the Royal Castle did not exist at that time, as I said before, it was completely destroyed, razed to the ground. The paintings had to be placed temporarily in the National Museum in Warsaw, and it was until 1980s when they were finally placed in the rightful place, in the rebuilt Royal Castle, in the same room, the same space where they were hung in the 18th century. So again, the researchers faced the challenge of placing them in the right order, and it's now worth mentioning, telling a few words about the series, how it was created, and about its specifics. So Canaletto painted them in the between 1767 and 1780. It was a very special time in Polish history, very difficult. So the state faced very difficult circumstances. In 1772, it experienced the first partition, and unfortunately, this situation was becoming worse and worse with the years, and some political disasters led to the second and the third partition of Poland. So, as we put it, somehow symbolically, the Poland was erased from the map of Europe. So, but returning to what Canaletto has achieved, it was not initially sure whether such series would be created. It was on the order of Stanisław August, the last Polish king, who commissioned Bernardo Bellotto to prepare a series of townscapes, or as they were called back in the 18th century, vedutas, views of cities. But surprisingly or not, Stanisław August wanted to have in his residence views of Rome, eternal city, which was very much admired at that time. It was very important for the noble people of Europe to go to Rome. It was very fashionable. People couldn't take photos, of course, but they used to buy paintings of Rome. And it was not differently in the case of Stanisław August. Unfortunately, he couldn't go himself to Rome, and he commissioned a series of paintings which depicted the eternal city. So this was the initial idea. In the 1770s, we can observe a change of mood in the political elites of Poland. So they became more concerned on the matters of Poland, also when it comes to the works of art. And these are the roots of the series of paintings that we can see in the castle today. So Stanisław August asked Canaletto to paint, instead of finishing the series of views of Rome, to paint views of Warsaw. And this is how it ended. The views of Rome were slowly replaced with views of Warsaw. And today we will not see any view of Rome in that room. All we have are churches and palaces and views of Warsaw. So this is a very unique document, not only how the city looked like in the 70s of the 18th century, but also of political attitude, which is really something very unique. This was also the aim of Stanisław August, who commissioned all these paintings to both somehow to the visitors with his own city, with his capital city. The room in which paintings are exhibited today, we call it Canaletto room, but in the past, in 18th century, in fact, it functioned as an antechamber leading to the throne room. So the important visitors used to wait here for the audience, and they were meant to look at the paintings and recognize the buildings and also the people, because now we know that some people some important figures who lived in the 18th century Warsaw were very carefully depicted. Bernardo Bellotto also used a special optical device known as camera obscura. It was a wooden box with a glass tile on the top and a system of optical lenses which provided an image of a city or a landscape which was right in front of a painter, and he could simply copy it by placing a paper on the top of a glass tile, and he simply used a kind of a pencil or a crayon just to copy it. And then he transferred the view on the canvases. A very unique history, unique series which miraculously was saved, and today we have all of them in the same room, in the same space, like in the 18th century. And you are very warm welcome to visit the castle and see all of them. And the really last thing I'd like to say is that in the recent years we managed to purchase one of the views of Rome. This is View of Capital by Bernardo Bellotto, which comes from that initial series of Views of Rome. It is presented in it is actually exhibited in another room, but you may see what was the initial idea and compare it with this very unique and special series of the paintings who survived such a long time and such a checkered fate. Thank you very much, and please be welcome to the Royal Castle in Warsaw. Thank you.